because, of course, Gordon Brown, repeating what Peter Mandelson had said earlier in the week, said on GMTV this morning, and I quote, "I think they have been deceived."
The Tories think they're onto a winner on this one, don't they?
They absolutely do. For the first time this year, and let's be clear, they've had a pretty tricky year, the Tories. It has not gone as they've planned, really, any week of the year, except last week, when they thought that, saying that they were opposed to this tax increase, saying that they could pay for it by waste, despite lots of scepticism raised about whether the numbers added up, questions raised by commentators, questions raised by the Institute of Fiscal Studies about quite how the arithmetic worked. They believe they're onto a popular cause. But more importantly, and this is what elections are often about, they now feel confident they have business on their side and that they have managed to get Peter Mandelson and Gordon Brown, who fought so long to get business on New Labour's side, to actually accuse senior businessmen of having been deceived.
Business has kind of fallen out with New Labour, hasn't it?
Well, what we want to hear from David Cameron at Question Time is where his $6 billion of cuts are going to fall.
No,
that's what the British people deserve to know.
I understand that. It's a perfectly legitimate question. But can I point out it's called,
speaking in the comments,
it's called Prime Minister's questions, not opposition leaders'
I thought Nick said he got the script of David Cameron's question. I assume that therefore he'll be setting out where these $6 billion of cuts, which are totally unspecified at the moment, Andrew, and which, remember,
I understand,
and which David Cameron himself described as the oldest trick in the book to say you can just save $6 billion on efficiency savings.
The thing that interests me about this is that it's quite fashionable to beat up on Boy George. That I've just done it again by calling him Boy George, Mr. Osborne. And yet, when you look back, he saved the Tories' skin with his inheritance tax way back in 2007, which encouraged Brown not to proceed with an election he'd probably have won. He set the tone at the Tory conference last autumn, and he's done it again with national insurance. Are we underestimating him?
Well, I'm going to say something that he probably will never forgive me for saying, which is he's rather like Gordon Brown. He is strategically good and publicly less good, frankly. Those people who see him behind the scenes really talk highly of him, and that is true actually of business figures. It's true, frankly, of Labour politicians who come across him. They think he's bright and intelligent and thoughtful and strategically clever. He is, though, rather like Gordon Brown, just much more awkward in public, and he has failed to connect with the public despite being in that job for many years.
And there's another new dimension, I think, in this campaign, given that the Lib Dems are getting equal status with the leaders in the leaders' debate and that they could be seminal in any hung parliament, and they've got 60 MPs and hope to add a lot more. I was blogging about this morning, and I felt it at the Today programme. They are now being held to a higher standard of account than ever before. Indeed, they're being held to a standard of account of the other two main parties.
They are beginning to be. I mean, it's been a complaint of both the two parties represented here that they get away with saying none of the above, plague on all your houses. No longer.
Let's go straight over to Alicia McCarthy in the Commons.
Guardsman Michael Sweeney, and from 3rd Battalion the Rifles, Rifleman Mark Turner. We owe them an immeasurable debt of gratitude. They were both engaged to be married, and our thoughts are with their loved ones and their families. Mr. Speaker, it is because of all our brave men and women in our armed forces and because of them that our families, our communities and our country is safer and more secure. And I think at this time it is right to remember all who have given their lives in Iraq and Afghanistan and all those who serve in our armed forces. I spoke to President Karzai and then President Obama yesterday, and our security forces in Sangin will be increased by around 500 from the Afghan security forces, providing greater security to the people of the region and support to our troops. Mr. Speaker, we are also sadly reminded today of the sacrifice made by members of our emergency services, and we send our condolences to the family and friends of the two brave firemen who died in Southampton last night. We pay tribute to the bravery and commitment demonstrated by all our emergency and public services. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in the House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Sandra